When the world starts spinning and the truth gets blurred, the OGs step in, voices to be heard. With wisdom so grand, they're here to break it down. Gonna tell it like it is all around the town. OG chopping block, where the real talk don't stop. Cutting through the BS, bringing truth to the top. Every episode, the truth unfolds, holding it down. The OGs are bold, calling out the hype, calling out the lies from the...
That was an excellent chopping block, but it would be remiss for us to have a show and live right in the state of Illinois and not talk about this tragic incident that happened to one of our sisters. Mm-hmm. You know, Miss Sonya Massey down in Springfield, Illinois, was murdered by, and I'm not going to even call him an officer of the law, a man, Sean Grayson. You know, we were talking on this show today, brothers, about the thin line between love and hate. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like when we're talking, a lot of times, you know, it's almost like a movie I'm playing in my head. And that movie I'm playing in my head, if I was in this guy Grayson's head. See, because what they want to say, and there's a lot of people talking about the incident, Mr. Rick and Darrin, about he should have did that and this, that. But let me give you my 2 cents on it. My 2 cents is the fact that if I was sitting in the bar with this guy with his white friends, and they was talking about Chicago or blacks, the conversation wouldn't have been nice. You see what I'm saying?
Right, it wouldn't.
Pretty much.
The conversation would be about, you know, black men this and black women that, and, you know, they're lazy, they're trifling. The N-word probably popped up a few times, but this is in their safe bubble. So when Grayson went out to Massey's home, he didn't go out there to protect and serve. He went out there with an idea that I really hate these people. And what happened is when the little conflict happened at the door, he had already made up in his mind, based on the conversation he probably had with friends in the bar or at home while watching a football game or basketball game.
Or their secret club.
Or their secret club. That, you know, it's just like an alcoholic or a drug addict or a hype when they need that fix. He needed that. He needed to shoot that young lady because he hated her. Mm-hmm. Not because of the fact that she had done anything to him, not because of his training. He hated her because she was a black woman. And that's what led to him shooting her. It wasn't about no judgment. It was about the fact that this is who this man was. Like you said, Mr. Rick's secret club. And I'm going to put that on chopping block to you, Mr. Rick.
I'm gonna take it back to Django. When a slave ran away, what did they call them that they sent out to catch the
slave catchers?
Yeah, but they had a special name for them.
Which eventually became the police. That's
yeah,
how the police was established, but
so,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, either or. You know, they got these guys in these secret clubs, you know what I'm saying? And they excel in these clubs when they murder one of us. If you look at what you just described, this shit was premeditated in his head.
That's right.
The concern for me is what was motivating him to feel the urgency to have to take a black life. You didn't just take a black life. Your coward ass took the life of a woman, a black woman. You know the lady wasn't no threat to you, man. Mm-hmm. But because you needed a count, a body count, she was the perfect victim.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we're a little delusional here.
Yeah.
We're pretending like this shit is not still going on.
Yeah.
It's going on. Skinheads, Ku Klux Klan, all this shit still exists right amongst us. Like the Klan, they've taken the goddamn hoods off now. Now you can't even identify them. But you can see their work. And the God-fearing people that most of our people is, they want to excuse it. No, that ain't how this game work. I bet you go over in their neighborhood and pull that shit on their people. I bet it won't be no excuses. All of them will be out there hollering, hang that nigga. Hang that nigga. So where's all this remorse coming from? 400 years of this shit, and you're still talking about pray for them? You had no reason to do any of that.
That's right.
Big old strong ass boy. You could have wrestled that lady down and put handcuffs on her.
1,000 things it could have done.
But you didn't go in there. Your whole day was fixed on a body count. They're doing it all in our community. They've even indoctrinated some of our black police officers into doing this shit. And we're sitting here as if they're protecting us. Man, we all have children. You know what the fear factor is of that? Of thinking that that could happen to your daughter any day of the week? You know how insane that is? Because we're an unprotected people, man. That's all I'm trying to say, you know. And we have to focus on ourselves. We really do. This platform is to bring this stuff to the forefront, not to ridicule white people. All white people ain't trying to hurt us, man. You know, that ain't what I'm saying. I don't care if you white, black, Martian, whatever you. If you're trying to hurt our children, fuck you. It's real simple. And we, with all the killings that's going on in our own community, need to turn that around to protect our community. People coming in here pretending like we're doing all of this murdering and going on. Stop playing games, man. Come on, man up, nigga, man up. For real, for real. Enough is enough, man. So I'm gonna leave it right there because I get beside myself.
D?
Just like you were just saying, Mr. Rick, when you just said man up. The biggest problem is not even the fact that we got people that hate us. People always gonna hate us. And like you say, this is going on. This goes back even before we were even brought here as slaves. They enslaved Africa in Africa. I think the biggest thing that keeps black people from standing up is fear. Right. I think it's fear. My biggest concern is that another black man is too fearful to help me if I have to defend myself or a community. That's the biggest thing. It's not even other people.
But think about it, brother. This woman called the police because she thought she had an intruder into the house. Now, my thing is, if you're calling the police, whose oath is to serve and protect, I mean, you're just thinking like, hey, you know, I think I got an intruder in the house. How did it end in murder?
When you go back, just like you all were just talking about slavery, you still have to go back to that because the agency was founded based on slaves escaping. White supremacy still exists. It still exists. It still exists. It hasn't went anywhere. The quickest way to become a killer and get away with killing somebody of another race is to become a police officer. They know that they'll go to court and most likely they'll get off. And so they do it without the fear of any real repercussion or consequence. And when I say repercussion, they're not worried about the repercussion of a black person. You go in a white community, or you let a black police officer kill a white person.
Or a white police officer.
Or white, yeah. It's repercussion from the community. It's consequences in the courtroom. See, they act as a community because race comes first. Somehow black people have bought into the idea that if you protect your people, you being racist. It's not loving. And I think people understand what it means to forgive. Forgive does not mean that there are no consequences. We learned that early. You do something, your mother and father forgave you, but it was still some consequences behind that. And I think we think by forgiving them that it will make them love us. I'm gonna say this, and just had to, like Mr. Rick say, we just had to cut to the chase. Black people are so afraid of white people, and they want white people to love and accept them so much. They think that by allowing your children to be killed, these people will somehow start feeling sorry for you, and they'll come around.
You think?
So they paralyzed that they won't do nothing. And what changed that? Here's the biggest thing. This is what changed the course of history. I know people always talk about gold, silver, and all that changed the course. It didn't. The gun changed the course of history. Africans in Africa way outnumbered the Europeans. They had spears and they had the manpower, but the first time a gun went off and they heard that sound from a gun, you see a man's head explode, you see him fall out. You throwing spears, and all he had to do was put the gun. That changed the course of history. So fear has been passed down from one generation to another. And I think when these guys become policemen and they in these secret clubs, it's to keep that fear going. Even let's say if they
Now,
find,
when you say secret club, brother, you're talking about
like the Ku Klux Klan and all that.
The white.
Yeah, these
nationalists.
little fraternal organization, because
Yeah.
the Klan is a fraternal organization. I had a guy that was a Facebook friend of mine. He's deceased now. He was a minister. He became a minister in all black church. He was once the imperial wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and he explained how that worked. He said most people look at these guys with these beards and all that other kind of stuff.
They ain't the
skinhead.
ones.
Yeah.
He said when he joined the Klan, he said his mother and father divorced. Father died. Mother got a boyfriend, kicked him out of the house. He said a man with a suit approached him and told him, son, you need a family. This was one of the leaders of the Ku Klux Klan. He said, these are your dentists, your deacons of the church in that time when he joined, your pastors, your police officers, your sheriffs, your senators. So he was indoctrinated with the fact that black people are not even people. And killing a black person is not the same as killing a white person. It ain't.
Well, killing any person, people.
But when you start
in
killing,
their eyes.
when you start killing, you become desensitized to it. And one of the things they use is fear. Even if it means one of them have to sacrifice. I believe that they go in this knowingly that, listen, you might have to take a hit for the cause. Meaning that you might have to do a little jail time, but you ain't gonna do as much, but it's to keep for the next generation of young white men coming up. And one of the ways to do that is through the police department, because they'll come and kill people in the black community, and then the family will say, I forgave them. So if I was a white person and I was a hater of black people, do you think for 1 minute that I'm going to help you to better yourself? No, I'm going to keep it going.
But let me just jump in here. And I agree with you, Mr. Rick and Darrin. But I'm tired of disguising it. I'm tired of tiptoeing around where we are as a nation. There's real hate out there.
Real hate.
Yeah, it's real hate.
There's real hate. And there's a lot of hate to the point where you have to think about it in a way that the direction we want to raise our, whether it's in the black community, it seems like it always festers in the black community. Here's a white cop come to a black woman's home who's cooking dinner. This guy looked like he was standing like Andre the Giant over this woman. If the woman became indignant, fussy, he could have said, ma'am, you know what, I came out here to help, to see if there's anything true, I'm sorry, but because of the way you're acting, I'm just gonna leave.
Oh, I'm just gonna arrest you.
Well, just, it's like whatever. But to sit there and shoot a helpless woman 3 times and justify the water is coming to my feet. I'm gonna tell you about a brother, man. I don't put too many brothers up on the pedestal, but I got to say this about this brother. Stephen A. Smith, ESPN First Take. You know when that George Floyd happened, I didn't turn to MSNBC, I didn't turn CBS or ABC or CNN. I turned to First Take. Because see, Stephen A. Smith is one of the only brothers who, when he speaks as a black man, his voice doesn't crack. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because, and everybody said, well, everybody can speak their mind, but you ain't got as much to lose as Stephen A. Smith. Right. You know what I'm saying? And if you haven't read this brother's book called Straight Shooter, man, fascinating book. But the reason I admire this brother, man, is because of the fact that he tells it like it is. We have to get back to telling it like it is. I'm sorry. I can't buy the fact that a young 12-year-old kid running around killing people somehow justifies his upbringing. This kid is a menace to society. I don't care if he's black, white, green, purple. Wrong is wrong. Right is right. But hatred now has festered so much in America that this man, should the police change their oath to serve, protect, and murder people of color?
They've already changed it.
There you go. But we have to be honest when we talk about this type of stuff. That man hated that woman. Hate was on his heart when he went to that woman's house. And I guarantee, and Stephen A. Smith said, well, you know, he deserved to go to jail. He deserved to be under the jail. This is what, when he goes to jail, he's going to take off that uniform and he's like a snake. He's going to shed that skin and he's going to become the white nationalist, Ku Klux Klan skinhead that he was before he put that police uniform on. And I had asked a black politician a long time ago, I'm not going to call his name, I said, you guys need to go to the police and you need to do a background check on each policeman. And if any of them had any smell of white nationalism, they shouldn't be allowed to be a police. It ain't no apology, it ain't no this is my past life, no. Your mind says the fact that you became a white nationalist because you felt a certain way. You hated anything that wasn't white Anglo-Saxon America.
Pretty much. You know, and the thing about that is, when they get, I believe, I don't know if this to be true, but I ain't no goddamn fool. When they become a part of the police, then they're introduced to other people that have these ideas. Mm-hmm. And that is where they get indoctrinated into taking it to the next level. Mm-hmm. That's a real issue. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean.
And that's real.
How many black police officers are in white communities? Think about that. And you got.
If they're in the white community, they probably, you know, step and fetching, you know, hey, how you doing, you know.
Well, you know,
they've been trained.
I've seen some of them, you know, they are a certain kind of black person. Mm-hmm. Ain't no secret to that, you know, and I've seen some of them and, you know, I've respected them, you know, they're just doing a job, you know, but my point is, you see very few of us in their community, but every other goddamn police car that drive up and down our community's got 3 or 4 of them in one car.
Mr. Rick, you educated me on something once, and I want to bring this to the audience. You said really the only people really is sanctioned by the government, the state troopers. The state troopers.
State troopers are the only
police
real
is
law.
a fraternal organization. Yeah. Like you just said, what's another fraternal organization?
The Ku Klux Klan. And it's a legal registered fraternal organization.
And you can't stop it.
Because it's a fraternity.
Right.
But here's the thing. Black people, we just have to call it what it is. The reason this still goes on is because they're afraid of white people. They don't want the smoke.
I don't blame them.
They're afraid. They have this mindset, well, if I just go through the court system, I don't put myself out there or my family to get killed, so we just gonna take it through the court system. And white people only respect one thing, racist white people, not all white people, because all white people don't deserve that.
That's right.
They all don't deserve that. You got a lot of them that got killed because they was what you call nigger lovers. Mm-hmm. But the ones that are racist, the only thing they respect is power. And for them, power is in the barrel of a gun. Some years ago, I think it was down in Texas, it was this cattle rancher, white guy. The United States government came on his property and said that this is federal government property and it has been for a long time. And the man said, no, this is my property. It's been in my family for years. They rounded up all his cattle and they put them in the bullpen. Guys I know, white boys from Michigan, the Michigan militia and the Indiana militia. They went down there with rifles, ARs and AKs. They went down there, stood with that man. They went and opened up them bullpens.
And let them out.
And they let all them animals out of there. Mm-hmm. And they was prepared to fight and die. Now, most black people will say, well, they didn't kill them because they was white. That's true. But the whole point is that a white man will kill a police officer and a federal agent.
And think nothing of it.
Think nothing of it. When those guys who followed Trump, when they stormed the Capitol, that's how revolutions start. See, they didn't look at it and say this is the White House. They followed the ideology. When they broke away from England, it was bloodshed. That was considered an insurrection, breaking away from Great Britain. Going to the White House was the same thing for them. The difference between us and them is they're willing to go all the way out. Not just to make a statement. They don't do it to make a statement. White folks, one thing about them, they take care of business. They don't do it to make statements. They do it to make life better for the white people. And that means doing whatever's necessary, including going to prison, including being labeled as a terrorist, including being killed. See, black people don't have that.
Let me piggyback
the Arabs
on that.
have that too, as well. That mindset.
Let me piggyback on that, man. You said something. You said that, see, the white man, he does that to defend his freedom.
That's right.
But see, black folk don't have no freedom to defend. You got to understand that.
That's true.
You got to understand this. You know, and people just think this is hot air. We're free. Black people, I'm sorry to tell you, you ain't never been free. You was free for about 5 minutes. No, for real shit.
That's true. That's true.
By the law, you was free for about 5 minutes. They reversed that shit so fast. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You're just a voluntary slave. If you were free, there's no way you could be labeled as black, Negro, colored, African American. Free people don't do that. First of all, if you free, nobody has the power to relabel you. Nobody has that power. Only you, if you're free. Mm-hmm. Tells you right there you ain't free. You done been through so many changes and so many laws. You're spent so many ways. You're just drunk. It's called wishful thinking. We don't understand the laws, the international laws.
International law.
That's why they're able to do and get away with all of this crap that they're doing. Because they know that you don't know that you're a subject. They labeled it as citizen. You're a subject. You ain't free.
And you're right. They do it to defend their freedom. See, when the white man talk about his freedom, he ain't just talking about here in the United States. Let's say, for example, Governor Pritzker put out a ban on what's called assault rifles, right? In the Constitution, the Second Amendment, when that was written, it was written for white folks. Black folks were still slaves. But when the Constitution was written, the Second Amendment, the people had the same type of weapons that the military had. And so when they started talking about what they did at that was to defend their freedom.
For real.
And that's real. And they will do anything to defend that. They'll do anything to defend. We don't have that. The Arabs will do the same thing. They'll fight you to the death. You see how Hezbollah, which are the children of those people, the great-grandchildren, grandchildren of those people who were living in Palestine before the Jewish state was set up, they know they don't stand it. They know that Israel got better weapons, got U.S. support, but it didn't stop them from launching an attack.
Because they don't stop.
They gonna fight to the death. We don't feel like black people don't do that. Nah, baby, I don't want no trouble.
For nothing.
Remember the movie Panther? Mm-hmm. The one, and remember when they was guarding Malcolm X's wife, and that brother Mark, thank you, Dale. I was trying to get rid of that. Sorry about that. They found out that the brothers had the guns, didn't even have the bullets, and he over there playing with it. What he say? What's the difference of guns and guns? No, man, a gun ain't just a gun. They had them guns and they was ready to use them. The Panthers would have used them. Mm-hmm. So you had that like almost like that 2% that's like that. The rest are like sheep. No, because they've been conditioned to think that if I stand up, some of them don't even want to say they black. I've run into some people that say, "Nah, I'm just an American. I'm not a Moor. I'm not an African American. I'm American," because they feel that if I can just show these people I'm humble, I'm nice, accept me. That's the mindset, and it's still like that, and it's being passed down. Now you made a comment when you were saying, you was asking that question, what can be done so, like white society, no, I'm not a danger to them, we're not a danger to them. Here's the thing, that shouldn't even be presented to them because we're not as dangerous as they are. Mm-hmm. They the ones, you got Bill Gates now creating artificial food, bought up all his family. He was showing it. This food ain't even real. Stuff they created in the lab. He said, oh, this tastes good. They inject people with viruses. They overtake other people's countries. They've started every world war. They are planning assassinations. So why should I tell you I'm not a threat to you? I don't feel like I have to. It's like, I don't think that they're in no moral position for me to try to justify that I'm not a threat, because the truth of the matter is they know it. They know it. They pretending like they don't know. They know. Some of them, I said, look, cut the bullshit. You know better. Stop acting like you know the truth. You know it. And they admit it. Yeah. So they know. So that's all just an act. You scared. You have to do that in order to be able to get away with stuff. Let's say a white woman shoots a black guy, or a white woman shoots a black woman. She knows, I have to say, I was in fear for my life to get off of this, but you knew you wasn't in fear of your life. That man knew he wasn't in fear of his life, but if it can keep the white power structure in command and keep us in fear, they'll make the sacrifice.
Well,
they sacrifice themselves just to keep, it's all about control. And this whole thing is about control. That's why you see more white cops in the black neighborhood. And the ones that's in the white neighborhood, you better not harass them white folks. We ain't even talking about the police. We're talking about the regular citizens ain't going to let you do it.
For real.
That's right.
The regular citizens are not going to let you do that.
They will pull a citizens police
yeah,
on your ass.
They still do that citizens police. You go in Indiana, everybody has a rifle. They don't call the police after they did what they did.
Hey man, let me throw something on top of what you're saying. Let me just pull a goddamn rabbit out the bag. America is afraid of black people.
Yeah, afraid of you.
No, let me tell you why they're afraid of black people. They brought you here unlawfully. That law states that there is no statute of limitation on bringing somebody somewhere against their will. There's no statute of limitation on that. There's no statute of limitation on murder, kidnapping, rape. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So yes, they are afraid of you.
I believe they're afraid of certain black folk, Mr. Rick. I believe they're afraid in a sense, like, say for example, a white lady just shoot this. She didn't know that girl wasn't even bothering you. I'm talking about the bullshit stuff they do. I believe they're afraid that you might, the people that's trying to put black people back together like Malcolm X, I believe they was afraid of him. I believe they became afraid of Dr. King when he started changing how he was talking and when he realized that he led us into a burning. I think they're afraid of that. But say like if me and you stand there with our backs turned, they'll do it because they know they can get away with it.
But let me explain myself. When I say that they're afraid, I ain't talking about white folks living in houses.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I ain't talking about that shit.
Right.
I'm talking about they're afraid that if black people came together,
exactly,
like they were going to the voting polls,
right, that's what they
and said, "Hey,
yes, sir.
We want to legally challenge your human rights violations."
I believe that
they are afraid of that.
Yeah, they're afraid of it, and that's why they do what they do to keep Negroes in control. Fear, the police, the uniforms, the tactical vests. If somebody, Tamir Rice, you mean to tell me they had to shoot that little boy and kill him? That's
we can keep going.
Listen, that's to let you niggas know, look, we not playing. Don't step out of line. We kill your kids. I believe that some of these kids that's getting killed in Chicago right now, a police officer gets killed. They find a person like that. But 70 people could get killed in a weekend. You don't find nobody. And some of them are kids. I believe those are private military contractors killing kids and women on purpose. And they making it look like these guys are doing it. They can cut them cameras off anytime they want to. Even some of these movies tell you how it works. Remember, there was one called The Born Supremacy. Remember when they wanted to assassinate that journalist? They were in the United States in Langley, Virginia. They cut the cameras off over in Germany somewhere and assassinated that man. They can cut these cameras off over here. You can't tell me that you got 70 shootings and every weekend and nobody's in custody, but every time a police officer gets killed, you find a person like that. That's because they have brought, this is another thing I believe. This is just a theory of mine.
Yeah, but what is the solution?
Yeah, here's the solution to it. The solution is this. And I hate to keep saying it like this, but you would actually have to do the same thing Hitler did in this sense. You would have to create what Hitler called a super race. And these people who are black people will have to be different from the ones before. They can't even intermingle with these other people. That means you can't even have guys like that, black people that endorse alcohol. This would have to be a people that's completely dedicated to sacrifice for the raising of a new black race of people. Hitler thought he was building a super race, even from among the German people. Them women that was messing with those SS guys, they couldn't talk to nobody else, even the other even other Nazis. You would have to do the same thing. These guys don't do nothing but go to school. These guys don't do nothing but do security. You can't even intermingle with that. You can't get caught up in none of that. You would have to like start over from before conception, not after, before. And it would have to be a conversation with these women and would have to agree that they only gonna marry men. They're not gonna be nobody's girlfriends, none of that. You're not gonna have no bunch of babies running around, and the men too.
So what you're saying is just putting that black family structure back.
You got to put that black family structure back.
It cannot be fractured.
And here's another thing. It has to be done, but it has to be done as a group. It can't be individual. See, the biggest problem with black people, everything is individually. You go in Mexican neighborhoods, Mexicans believe in family. They'll cut the roof off a house and add another deck onto it so family members, there'll be 5 trucks outside because they all splitting the mortgage. See, it's too much individualism. They do it as a unit. Now they fight and kill each other and sell dope too. But you remember when all that looting was going on, Mr. Rick? The Latin Kings and 2-6, they 2 rival gangs, they got together and called a truce and said, them niggas, y'all ain't finna come over here and tear up this neighborhood. But see, everybody thinks like that except us. See, you got to get that family structure back where it's a man and a woman. When I was young, I remember they didn't call contractors. If this, say like this man, Mr. Conley, he gonna tear his porch down. Mr. Greer, Mr. Mitchell, all the men on the block helped him do that. And then they would go to his house and help him do that. They shared everything. I remember watching them men tear garages down, lay concrete and build porches. And they would all help each other. You gotta bring that back. You had a group down in the South called the Deacons for Defense. The deacons got tired of them people running over them. So they all got together and said, we're going to defend ourselves. We're going to arm ourselves and we're going to defend ourselves. Because that's what it takes. We can talk all we want to. Please don't do, man, them people don't understand that.
But yeah, we need a focal point. You know, because other than that, we'll be all over the place. What is?
So let's do this, Mr. Rick. Why don't we start a focal point on the original OG chopping block?
Why don't we do that?
Why don't we start right here?
Right.
Here, with the black men in this room, to say we're gonna take the top off the bullshit, and we're gonna talk about it in the honest, truthful way in front of America, and call out whoever the problem is, and keep them, whether it's YouTube infatuating and creating this violence between gang members, and our young kids are stupid enough to say, hey, such and such was on No Jumper talking about they the hottest gang, man. We got to go prove the fact that we the real shit. Silly. So let's maybe have these conversations to where,
throw this in there.
you know, we want people to start listening to us because we're looking for solutions. We're really looking for really honest solutions. I'm tired of hearing about 4th of July weekend, 19 people shot. Like what? We can't even go out and enjoy a holiday?
No.
How stupid is that? You can't even let your kid go down to the block to go to the corner store because you're afraid that they might get shot. Miss Jones is afraid to come out and sit on the property that she owns in a black neighborhood with her own people because she may get shot, or baby, where you going? No, you stay in the house because somebody may drive by and shoot at you.
Stupid is, stupid does.
But you know what I think? I think what's going to have to happen, I believe all those media sitcoms, they going to keep doing what they doing.
They're going to keep doing what they're doing.
But here's the thing. If the people are trained not to respond, I remember one time my grandmother told me, she said, sit on this porch and don't leave. It was 10 people calling me, but because she told me I didn't leave, regardless of what they were saying, because she said, I told her, what's her grandma, they down there doing this. She said, I don't give a shit, you know what I said. So I think what has to happen is you have to build up the immune of your people against that, just like a pimp do with a prostitute. She don't care what her mama said. She's so loyal to that pimp, she gonna do what he say, regardless of how many people telling her not to do it. I think the problem is the young people don't have nobody that they idolize enough to follow to say, we ain't finna go on them shows. But you pull them guys individually and start talking to them. And then some things you do, America can't know about it, because if you put your plan out there, they're going to send somebody to infiltrate it. So some stuff you have to do clandestine, just like they do. White folks don't announce what they're going to do. If they want to build a building, you just going to see it when it start going up, and you see it when it's finished. They ain't going to even say we doing this.
Yeah. But let's put a wrap on it, man.
Yeah, let me close with this.
Yeah. Well, before you close, I want to give my condolences to Sonya Massey and the family and the community. We at the Original OGs, we really want to send our prayers to you, and the fact that we really care about your daughter, and we'll do everything we possibly can to make sure that, you know, we want justice to be served. Mr. Rick.
Why don't we, at the end of every chopping block, close with a possible or a opening for the audience to give a possible solution.
Okay.
Go into the comments.
Right. And let us know what you think the solution is. Keep it intelligent. You know, come on now, this is serious. You know, we're talking about our children here. You know, I'm 66 years old. Hell, it's over with in another goddamn few minutes. So, you know, we got to think about the people coming behind us. You know, because we've come behind some people. They came behind some people. They came behind some people. And those people were slaves. So we've gotten this far on the backs of other people. So let's allow our children to get further on from the sweat of our backs. So we're going to say we're going to end each one of these with the possible solution. And we'll be taking from the comments and reading what you say
On the chopping block.
Yeah, on the chopping block. What you say the possible solution is. Not what we say, what you say.
I do want to say, because of the Olympics, the original OGs host with Mr. Rick and our special guest, we will continue that show. Chopping block is something new we're doing so we can stay current affairs, current news, and what's going on in society today. But after the Olympics, because we know everybody's watching the Olympics, we can't compete against the Olympics, but we will be back. We really missed, the show.
On a regular schedule.
On a regular schedule. Mr. Rick, like you always ended with.
That's it. That's all.
I want to go back to 1974, in between the years of 1974 and 1978. And I just want to bring out a little history showing how we progressed to get where we are today. This didn't just happen overnight. So in between the years of 1973 and 1978, when a lot of the original members of Disciples, Vice Lords, and Stones, these guys were in jail. So the streets were like they are now. They were fractured. So during that time, a lot of neighborhood gangs started arising in all these different communities across the city. 16th and Lawndale, the area, the heart of the holy city, you had a group of brothers called Brothers Incorporated. Go over to Ridgeway, you had another group over there called RIPs, Ridgeway International Players. You had a group of brothers up at Farragut High School called FIGs, Farragut International Gangsters. You come over to Sawyer, be down on 1314 Sawyer, Christiana, you had another group over there called the Sawyer Destroyers. Right around Lawndale and Roosevelt, there was another group over there called the Mystery Knights. You get over to Troy and Roosevelt. You say, hold on. Oh. Boy, that was common on the west side. That's all I heard. Down on Roosevelt and Troy, you had a group called the Troy T's. Now, anybody that's ever lived on the west side knows that you can take Douglas Boulevard and you could come to the south side. And a lot of times when we was leaving the west side, we came to the south side. I originally came from the west side in 1973. I came out south in that year, 1973. You take Douglas Boulevard, you can take that all the way 55th and go all the way straight into Hyde Park. So around 55th and Halsted, you had another group called TB, Together Brothers. Coming further south, 71st and Lafayette, that big white building right on the corner, you had the White Building Boys. Ida B. Wells, you had a group called the Mac City Gents. Going into the area that's called Terrortown, before it was called Terrortown, you had two groups over there. You had the Kingston Raiders and you had the Kingston Killers. So see, these are some of the groups that became part of the original groups in this time frame. So 1978 come around. Shorty Freeman is now the king of the Black Disciples. You had two groups out here as far as the disciples' name, Black Disciple, Black Gangster Disciple. And the reason I think that this part is so important because a big war kicked off between the Black Disciples and the Gangster Disciples, and we still feeling the effect of it now because even the new groups, even though they all in the clique, some of them still claiming that they BDs and the GDs. So the reason I thought this prelude was so important is for them to understand that it wasn't always like this. Now, even though that split took place in the 70s, most of the guys that became disciples in between 1978 and the early 80s, they didn't care nothing about that. They was just happy to be a part of the disciple family. and it was unified even though you had the two groups. And what a lot of guys don't know is every week in the Black Gangster Disciple meetings, 4 names was mentioned. Matter of fact, we used to open up the meeting with a prayer. We had one person in the center of the circle and everybody else formed a circle around them, and they would recite the disciples' prayer and we would repeat after them. 4 names came up in the Black Gangster Disciple literature as far as the prayer, and that was King David, King Hoover, King Shorty, and Minister of Defense Don Durkee. So the Disciple Nation, even though you had them 2 different branches, and regardless of how Shorty Freeman became leader of the Black Disciples, that's neither here or there. It was done, and the Disciples Nation functioned in unity. Black disciples and Black Gangster Disciples. Now, as the years went on, let me take it back a little bit, just so people understand what was going on. The reason I keep saying Black Gangster Disciple, because the Gangster Disciple name was not Gangster Disciple, it was Black Gangster Disciple when I joined. When I joined, there were branches inside the Black Gangster Disciple Nation that was a part of the original groups from the 60s, and they carried over as branches inside the Black Gangster Disciple. That was High Supreme. You had High Supreme Gangster Disciples. You had Insane Gangster Disciples. You had Outlaw Gangster Disciples. When I say outlaw, I'm not talking about the group that rose up later on in Cabrini Green, that renegade group. I'm talking about the sanctioned Outlaw Gangster Disciple, 95th Street, Don US. You had Boss Pimps, you had Sircons, and you had Maniacs. A good friend of mine, Don Robb from off 70th and Bell, was the Don of the Maniacs. So you had Black Gangster Disciple Nation and the Black Disciple Nation, and you had them branches inside of it, and we was unified. If I had 100 guys with me, 1/3 of those guys were Black disciples. I was a High Supreme Gangster Disciple. Some of my closest friends, guys like Mickey Bull from Henry Horner. You had Minister Ed from, Mickey Bull from Robert Taylor. Minister Ed was from the Horners. These guys were close to us, so wasn't no BD, GDs killing each other back then. Every now and then you might have had some guys that had a little rift between each other, but it wasn't no nation thing, BDs and GDs killing each other. 1984 come around. We get word from the Don that the old man was breaking up all the branches inside the Black Gangster Disciple Nation. It's just GDN. Ain't no more Insanes, High Supremes. And make no mistake, I want y'all to understand, when we say High Supreme, it was by then it was High Supreme Gangster Disciple. High Supreme and Supreme Gangsters is 2 different things. The Supreme Gangsters was the father of the Gangster Nation. High Supreme was a branch of the Supreme Gangsters. And after 69, everything had a D on it. So we was High Supreme Gangster Disciples up until 1984. When 84 came around, it was just Gangster Disciple Nation. This is when you start hearing guys saying GD. Nah, it was still unified. It was still much love between the Black disciples and the Gangster Disciples. 1987 comes around. Ronald Reagan is president. We had a standoff with the Soviet Union. You had all this stuff going on. Now we got a new drug in our community. Now in the 70s, it was heroin, teas and blues. You had yellow jackets, black beauties, syrup and a bean. Now we got Ready Rock. When the Rocks came on the scene, that's when you start really seeing the rift and unity between the Black disciples and the Gangster disciples, because now it was about territory and people defending an area about who's intruding on somebody's area as far as getting money. As the years went on, Shorty Freeman stepped down as the leader of the Black disciples. We got a new Black disciple leader now. To further the tensions, this is going into the 90s, coming into 2000. This is in the 90s going into 2000. You had a group within the Black disciples that was known as Blue Fins. One of them was a good friend of mine, and I didn't know what that meant. One day we was having a conversation, and he was telling me that he was a Black disciple, but he said that they wear their hats to the left, and they was under a blue 5-point star. So I had never heard of that. He was telling me, you know, the Stones and us, we first cousins. I've been gone since 84. I left the streets in 1984, but I still had good friends that were still out there. So that was another thing in and of itself. So one day I was over on 69th and Halsted. Now that was Black disciple area. I was going over there to see an old friend that was a Black disciple. We see a young boy walking down the street. He got his hat to the left and he throwing the pitchforks down. So I asked him, I said, what, they Vice Lords or Stones over? He said, no, them the Blue Fins. So now you see there was a progression that led up to where we are today. So going into the 90s, by the 90s, they was out there killing each other. It was like two different nations then. Going in the 2000s, that's when all the guys, the United States government was going from mob to mob, chopping all the mobs down, taking the leaders off of the street. Now you got a group of brothers out here with no leadership. That was in every mob. So now you had people on the street forming their own organizations. And even before that, if we go back into the 90s, even inside the Gangster Disciples, you had guys that was breaking away because of various reasons. Some of them was renegades, and some of them because they was upset with the leadership, different things they said, people abusing their authority. So you had guys doing renegade things then. But by the time 2000 came, all that stuff was just totally dismantled. So you have now a group of young men that's coming up with no real leadership and no direction. They form their own little groups. Then they start bringing in guys they were considered rivals at one time, and they became these little groups that they have today. And the reason I thought that was so important is because things are not the way they always started to be. And a lot of people don't know that. You got some guys out here, they don't know the history of the Black disciples or the Gangster disciples, even some of the older guys. And you got people out here feeding these guys misinformation. Now, when I was coming up, history wasn't a big thing. History wasn't as important as knowing your literature. People wanted to know their laws, because if you was wearing a 6-point star, which you saw everywhere, and back in them days, you knew what neighborhood you was. You don't see it now, but back then, disciples was everywhere. You saw it all over the wall, 6-point star, BGDN, BDN, with the pitchforks. The older Black disciples were under the pitchforks because the pitchforks was a disciple symbol until the gangsters merged in '69. But you knew where you was there. Now it's just different cliques in different neighborhoods from block to block. So I feel that my generation and the generation before that, I feel like we owe you young brothers and sisters, and not only y'all, but the Black community, an apology for perpetuating this idea when we were young that another Black man was your enemy and your opposition. These are your brothers and sisters, no matter what they are, whether they call themselves Vice Lords, Mickey Cobras, whatever cliques y'all got going on out there. These are all your brothers. And what we need you brothers to do is to come together and protect the neighborhood. We got people coming in our communities, kidnapping our girls. We got people coming over there doing shootings and blaming it on brothers. Y'all know that. We need you to stop turning your guns on each other. And again, I want to say from the bottom of my heart to the Black community, I want to apologize for my role as a young person, for keeping that idea going back when we was young, that another Black man was our opposition and the enemy. I got a brother that just passed away about a week ago. I missed his funeral. Now, back in the day, me and this brother, we was trying to kill each other for 10 years. Next time I saw the guy, he was in church, he was a minister, and I was a minister. This guy became like my brother. And make no mistake, we done had some runs with each other. Matter of fact, he stabbed me, cut 2 of my arteries back in the day. My arm is still numb to this day. But 10 years later, we was able to put that behind us because we understood that that's what came along with the lifestyle we was living. So this brother became like a brother to me. His brother name, we used to call him Karate Kevin. He was one of the leaders of the Mickey Cobras. So I just want to let you brothers know you can't reconcile that. That comes along with the territory. The stabbing, the shooting, you live that lifestyle that comes along with it, but we don't have to keep that going. And to some of the older brothers, you need to tell these guys the truth, because there's some of you all out there that's feeding all this negativity to this brother, talking about how it was when you was out there, and you making these stories sound glorious. We can't glorify the past, and we got to tell the truth. Maybe in the beginning, it started off as organizations protecting the communities, because when Blacks was coming from the South, they was moving in white communities up in Chicago, up here in the North. But as the whites moved out, we started fighting each other. So let's just tell the truth. This may have started off about family and community, but it turned into a street gang. I can't say that when I came in, it was about family, because it wasn't. It was about gang banging, and we was destroying our own community. So again, I just want to let y'all know, since that time, I've been a correctional counselor. I worked in a group home. I've had some of the best jobs in the world. But I just want to let you brothers know there's a life outside of the community. And until you all come together, put your differences to the side, what you're doing is laying a foundation for your children to walk into. Now, some of y'all that's out here doing this killing, When you go to the penitentiary, ain't nobody out here to protect your daughter, your little sister, your baby, your sons, none of that. You leaving them out here at the mercy of the world. And like they used to tell us when I was younger, what goes around comes around. When you go to the joint and somebody else decide to kill somebody, it might be your daughter standing out there to get caught up. It might be your mama, and you can't do nothing about it because you're not here to protect them. So you got to think about them seeds you planting, because the seeds you plant, they might come back as weeds, and they'll come up and they'll choke your family as well.
When the world starts spinning and the truth gets blurred, the OGs step in, voices to be heard. With wisdom so grand, they're here to break it down. Gonna tell it like it is all around the town. OG chopping block.